spouse is not going to reward you. That
Mm.
wasn't for him. That wasn't for him. You didn't
Mm.
do, you may have done it with him in mind, but it is God.
You're pointing at him, but then the others are pointing right back at you, right? You owned it. So now,
Absolutely.
whatever happened while there was a journey for both of you to kind of figure out together.
There's so much isolation. Women feel isolated. You need to find a community. You
Mm.
need to find a community on Wives That Thrive. It's a great opportunity for women to engage.
Hey, hey, queens. Hey, queens. How are you today? It is me, Nikio, your host and hostess, rather, of your podcast. For those of you that are stopping by for the very first time that don't know me, and I'm also the convener of Wives That Thrive, a community that celebrates women in whatever stage of marriage they're in, to help them thrive better. And today I have come yet again with another fantastic, amazing guest. She is phenomenal. Wait till you hear all that she has to say. When she opens her mouth, wisdom just kind of oh my goodness. So get a pen and paper ready if you don't have one. And while you're at it, go ahead and click, like, subscribe, hit the notification button so that all of your other queens can come and hear this amazing woman speak. Who am I talking about? I am talking about the one and the only Miss Yemi Falayajo. Her occupation, she's a UN Women Liberia Deputy Representative and Associate Pastor of the Stone Church, Abuja. Now, Yemi Falayajo is a seasoned professional and pastor with a passion for healthy institutions and healthy marriages. What? Yemi has led and managed large multicultural teams across 10 countries and several continents, and co-pastors a church with her husband with her husband with 25 years of experience in international experience and 23 years of pastoring. She has been married for over 24 years. Y'all give a clap for that. 24 years is nothing to lift your nose up about. That has been work and commitment. Woo! Yemi has made significant contributions to national and regional development, gender equality globally, and in the lives of people and marriages. When not working, Yemi enjoys journaling, traveling, and spending time with family. Without any further ado, please, please, please put your hands together and help me welcome the most amazing. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Oh my goodness. It is so amazing to have you here with me today. I am ecstatic. Thank you for saying yes. I know you are busy, but for you to take the time out, it just honors me. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Yemi,
Thank
how
you.
are you doing today? I mean, you are a powerhouse. You're global. People need to know who you are. Tell us a little bit about what it is you do so much. Just in a
Yeah.
nutshell, who is Yemi and why is Yemi, you know, why do you do what you do? You are phenomenal.
Thank you, Queen. Thank you, Nikki. It's such an honor to be here. And thank you for what you do. Thank you for all you do. Um, Looking at my marriage now for 24 years, I wish we had women like you when we were navigating, when
Mm.
we were building, when we were not sure if our decisions made any sense.
Mm.
And, while we got some affirmation, we didn't really know. We didn't even know what we were doing. So, but God has helped us. And I'm so pleased to be here. And I honor your work. I honor the work you're doing
Thank
to build healthy wives that will build and be the pillar of healthy marriages.
Amen.
If the wife is not thriving, it's very likely the marriage will not thrive as well. So I'm happy you're focusing on women. I'm happy you're focusing on their well-being and
Mm,
equipping them with tools to navigate so
mm.
that they can actually thrive and not survive in marriages. So
Right.
uh, I'm proud of you, Queen. Extremely proud.
Oh, I appreciate that. Thank you so much. Thank you. So,
Yeah,
what you do? I mean, wow.
yeah,
You're global.
I am.
You are global. So, how does that come to be? What you went to school and studied whatever it is you studied, and then how did these doors open for you? Because this is amazing.
It's it's interesting. Okay, I'm a dentist by training. So
No,
oh yeah.
no, I never knew that. Wow, amazing. Okay, I
Yes.
know something new. Wow.
So when I finished, I started practice. I actually started practice. And then my husband decided that he was going to go and leave where we were at and go to another state entirely to do ministry.
Hmm.
So that was the beginning of my Thrive journey. I mean, this was I had my whole career laid out in front of me. I just had a baby. Well, yes, I just had a baby. He's now 23, but at that time he was a baby, and I was just new into the marriage, new into everything. And
Yeah.
then the plot changed that he was going to go somewhere else to start something we had never done before. We're both professionals. He's an engineer. So we had our career, everything laid out for us. And I remember when I went to tell my supervisor then that I was leaving to go to Abuja to join my husband. And he asked to do what? I said to do ministry. The man just laughed and everybody else laughed. And I said I had to resign. I was going to resign. And I think for a long time, he didn't accept my resignation because he thought that was a wild and silly thing to do. And really, to be honest with you, I'm not sure what compelled us to go, if not for the wild call for adventure and the calling I think my husband believed he has. And God has been faithful. We've been pastoring the church now for over 23 years. So that was what shifted. That was my first shift, and having to accept my first negotiation to thriving, to the
Hmm.
thrive factor as a wife.
Right.
I had to do that even without knowing that that was what I was doing.
That's right.
And I had to also buy equity from my husband and for my husband because nobody else stood by him at that time. And
Wow.
I was a very critical factor in his move or not to move. He had made up his mind, but everybody, and everybody that knew everybody thought that was a wild idea. And the factor was, oh, you're just starting a young family, you're just starting out in marriage, you're just starting, do you want to take your wife to suffer, blah, blah, blah.
Mm-hmm.
And, everybody had meetings with us. And I had to put my foot down to say, you know what? This is a decision we made
Mm.
and we will stick with it.
Mm.
Of course, behind closed doors, I'm like, this is your decision, but I needed to stand by my husband. And I think that determined one of the thrive elements in my marriage without knowing. And for me, that was one of my core values as well. And that has also created the foundation for me to do the things I'm doing now.
Hmm. You have said so much. Oh my gosh.
Mm,
We'll come back to what you're doing now, but that was very critical. Newly
yes,
married. Now
yes,
your husband comes to you and goes, yeah, and it's not as if you didn't have a plan of your own. You
absolutely.
educated you. So it's not as if, I have nothing to do, so I'll just go with my husband. You had a solid um, profession behind you. And he walks in
Absolutely.
and says, "Yeah, babe, so we're moving."
Hmm. Girl.
What was that thought process like for you, and how did you get to the place where you now were able to say, even though everyone is raging on the outside, and even though I feel that this man, I don't know what he drank or what he ate or whatever, but I'm going to show to the world that we're a united front, because that's very,
Absolutely.
but then B, to now
Absolutely.
get to the place where your mind can say, all right, I'm going to just have to trust this man.
Absolutely.
What was that whole thought
Absolutely.
process like for you?
To be honest with you, now that I reflect, I looked at my core values, my own core values, and what I wanted to define the rules of engagement with my husband because I was newly married.
Yeah.
And one of the rules of engagement was that we would always have each other's back.
Okay. I
And
love it.
that demonstrated that I didn't think I had a call to do anything. I didn't know I just knew that this man has made the decision. I knew him as a man of conviction. Not that we agree on everything he has convictions about, but I knew him as that man of conviction, and I knew it was not a light decision he made.
Got it. Mhm.
Nikki, I resigned my job. He
Yeah.
wrote the resignation letter. I was just starting out my career, and I had to resign. And for a long time, for over 10 years, when my colleagues were going into residency and all of that, I didn't do anything because I was paying for that decision that I made. I paid the
Mhm.
price for that decision. And I think many times we think in marriage, we don't, we since we are married, just being married is the price. You need to pay the price for the values and the rules of engagement that you put so that you can thrive.
Amen. That's very true. Marriage on its own is not the end all be all.
Mm-mm,
It really is
no.
just the beginning of a journey of two people coming together and now understanding what it is that their vision is.
Yeah,
So am I to believe then that you it's not that you didn't have a vision for your marriage, it's just that you didn't have the vision the way it ended up being.
absolutely. Absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
you learned to pivot. Go ahead. Uh-huh.
But I had core values.
Yes. So what
And
were
those
your core values? Tell me, because you mentioned that quite a bit now.
at,
What were
at,
your core values?
at that time I couldn't have articulated it as I'm articulating it now. But I realized that family, being with my husband, not just being married, family
Hmm.
and being with him at that time was very important to me.
Okay.
Even beyond, so I had to make a hard choice. Do you want to grow your career or do you want to grow your marriage?
Hmm. That's a good question.
So,
Queens, did you
and
hear
it,
that? Do you want to grow your career or do you want to grow your marriage? You need to start thinking about that, because some of the decisions we make, some of the choices we make, some of the things we do, somewhat is in contradiction to whatever it is that we say we want to do. So that's a
absolutely.
huge nugget that I would like you guys to go think about and consider. Continue. Do you want to grow your marriage or grow your career? And
And
those are
each
two
comes with
different
a
things altogether.
Absolutely. And each comes with a price. Each
Mm,
comes with a price. Each comes with a price that you either pay now or you pay later. So for me, my marriage then was, I mean, I had pastors, co-pastors tell me, you know what, why don't you stay here in Ibadan then? And he goes to Abuja and you guys can be shuttling. And it was a non-negotiable for him and it was non-negotiable for me. So I think that was a meeting point.
got it.
And by the time I made up my mind and decided, I knew it was my decision. So there was no, oh, if only you left me in Ibadan, if only. No, it was my decision.
You owned it. I love
I
that.
owned it and I owned everything that came with it.
That right there. Oh my gosh. Another. Bam, just mic drop. Taking ownership of our actions and our reactions and anything that we do in the marriage, and stop, that art of this. Yeah, but you have one
Absolutely.
finger pointing at him, but then the others are pointing right back at you, right? You owned it. So now
Absolutely.
whatever happened while there was a journey for both of you to kind of figure out together without sitting there saying, uh-huh, did I not see? You know how we can be. So that eliminated a lot of things that would have added to the frustration and the anxiety that he already had, because he didn't know, right? He was stepping out on faith
Absolutely.
as well. So to have a
Absolutely.
wife that was constantly reminding him of the step, the huge step that he took, would have not, would just have made it all even harder for him. Kudos to you for that.
Absolutely.
That is
Thank
fantastic. I
you.
love that. You took ownership and you're proud to say it,
Mhm.
and I love it. Wow.
Thank you.
Awesome. So I know people, wives, always say, well, I want both. I want my
Hmm.
career and I want my marriage. What would that have looked like if you had tried to do that
Hmm.
at
First and
that?
foremost, I wouldn't be where I am. I wouldn't be at the high level working in the UN as I'm doing now. I would have
Mm,
shortchanged myself. You see, the thing is, obedience and sacrifice, obedience always pays off.
mm,
I mean, I may have to wear my pastor hat now. God always has a way of rewarding that sacrifice.
mm, mm,
I call my husband my destiny helper, this phrase in Nigeria called destiny helper. And I said, look, destiny helpers are not people that I call him because if he hadn't made that move, I wouldn't have been positioned to take on the opportunities that came. I would have just had a great career working in some clinic somewhere. Maybe I would have opened my own clinic as well, but I knew there was more. And I would
wow.
have just been in one local place somewhere, maybe I'd best travel for vacation with my kids, but not contributing to global development, not having the kind of exposure I've had, not showing up at my highest self, and not being valued as such. So obedience, and I want to say this to any woman that feels as if she has put in so much into her marriage and she's not getting the same from her spouse. Your spouse is not going to reward you. That
Mm,
wasn't for him. That wasn't for him. You didn't
mm,
do, you may have done it with him in mind, but it is God that will reward you. And so don't own it. Own your decision, and then you will own your reward. Okay. So I have it all, I must say, now, because I have marriage, I have a thriving career, and I have ministry,
wow, look at that.
active ministry. And I have great friends like you, great friends that we engage at a certain level. I don't think I could have been able to do that if I
Mm,
didn't yield. So as a woman, I think you need to know when to yield and when to own. You need to gain equity in your marriage so that when it's time for you to own, I can't do all these things. I have the full backing of my husband.
there you
I
go.
travel the world and I have his full backing because when he needed my full backing, he had it.
Yeah. Yes. Wow. That is, whew. So, so in essence, women can definitely have it both. They can have the career and the marriage. They just may need to give one a chance first before the
Absolutely.
other, possibly,
Absolutely.
right?
Absolutely.
If ever
Absolutely.
they're finding that maybe there's this
Conflict.
conflict,
Mm.
then take a step back and go, okay, which is more important right now?
Now.
Right?
Absolutely.
And that's the key. And I think that is essential to understand, because we come into marriage like you rightly did, fully educated, fully having our own goals and plans and everything that we want to do. But somehow, what are your thoughts? Somehow we feel as if me stepping down right now to let him do what he knows to do and wants to do for the family as the protector of the family, as the provider of the family, we feel as if that's taken away from us. Whereas you're a living proof that that's not true.
No, girl, you're paying it forward.
Paying
If
it
you are
forward.
paying it, if you are strategic, you will understand that you are paying it forward, because marriage is partnership.
That's right.
Sometimes it will be his turn, sometimes it will be your turn. But when it's now your turn and you've already taken your chances at the beginning, even if you have your way, it won't be a partnership anymore. It's just you having your way. You won't thrive.
That's right. That's right. Wow. That's, ooh, we're going to talk some more about that. But tell us a little bit about your travels. You had your
Oh,
everywhere. What has that been like? Where have you been?
okay. I've been to Afghanistan. I've
Hmm.
been to the States several times. I've been to Botswana, Namibia, Nairobi, Kenya. I'm currently in Liberia. I've been to Sierra Leone. I've been to Dakar. I've been to Malawi. I've been to South Africa. Where else now? Namibia, Botswana. Yeah, I've been
You've
to
been
several.
everywhere. Amazing. That is fantastic. All,
I've,
those are all countries that I have on my bucket list that I would want to visit. I've done more of the western side of the world, but now it's time to actually go, really do the
yeah,
country.
you should. You should. You
Really,
should. They're beautiful.
I know. You don't have to tell
Mm,
me. I
mm,
know that I absolutely know that it must be beautiful. And so, in all of your journeys,
mm,
um, what are some key learnings? I'm sure you've had many, but let's narrow it
mm,
down to, since we're talking about wives, for instance, what
mm,
have you seen in regards to marriages? Is there a
mm.
common denominator that you can say, ah, okay, so this happens here too, or something that you picked up from any of these countries that you're saying, okay, we don't do this, but this is something I would like to incorporate into my marriage, or even both. I don't know.
I think one major observation I've
Mm,
made is communication is vital in any marriage. And men, I realize that women, whether I also lived in Europe for some time.
okay.
I lived in Amsterdam. And I realized that whether you're European or Asian or African or even from the States, from the West, as it were, women, our needs are similar as women. We want to thrive.
Hmm.
Every woman wants to thrive in her marriage. Every woman wants to feel loved, accepted, valued. I've worked with all kinds of women. I've worked with very, very high profile women. I've worked with cleaners and cooks, and the needs are the same.
Mm,
More so as you even rise, because it gets very lonely for women.
that's right.
So, one thing I must say, Nikki, is that whatever it is you're doing on Wives That Thrive, it's a need. It's a must have. It's not a nice to have, because there's so much isolation. Women feel isolated,
Yeah,
and that's one is critical. But I also realize that men also have needs,
that's true.
and they don't express it the same way as women. So what we think is peculiar to us in Africa or the black race or whatever, I see it also in Japan or in Asia, among my Asian friends. You
Wow.
know, it's the needs are basically the same.
Yeah.
The need for affection, the need for respect, the need for companionship, the need for affirmation. They are basically the same. And having conversations like this among couples is really critical, and
Mm,
helping women to understand that because you've given it up now doesn't mean you've given it up or doesn't make you less of a partner in that marriage or in that partnership. So I see that a lot, and I see how that erodes the confidence of women.
Mm.
Their self-confidence, their ability to even navigate within the home, to identify their own thrive factors and to thrive.
Mm.
I see that a lot. Some regions better than others
Yeah.
communicate better. Some regions not as not as good as others, but I see that, and I also see the need for more mentorship.
Mm. That's right.
More
Right. Like
mentorship.
the Bible tells us that, the women teach the women, teach the women.
Absolutely,
And it's
absolutely.
sad that in this day and age, we feel we can't trust enough to
Mm,
even want to share what is going on in our marriages with someone else, because social media
yeah.
has made it look as if I don't know, as if there's just no good marriage out there, right? But here
Mm,
you are telling me you've been married 24 years. That's a great marriage. Of course you went through your ebbs and flows, but that's a great marriage. And yet you have to look far and wide to find a mentor that
mm,
will mentor you in your relationship and make you, help you become that woman that you yearn to be for
mm.
yourself, for God first, for yourself second, and then for your husband.
Absolutely,
That's
absolutely,
so. How do we
absolutely.
bridge this gap of of finding mentors? Before we even talk about the finding mentors, you made a very critical statement about isolation. The higher we go,
Ah, yes,
higher we
yes.
go, the more isolated we are. You're high. I mean, you're as
Mm,
high as it come.
mm,
How have you been able to circumvent that isolation, that feeling of, oh my gosh, this
mm.
it's just me, and however I'm dealing with this, it's just me. What have been the steps or the way forward for you?
Oh, yeah. This is a very important question, and this for women, it's you need to find a community. You
Mm,
need to find a community of women that gets you. You need to find a safe space so that you can. I mean, and I've done that. And Nikki, our
yeah.
relationship, and people that even when you're quiet, they know. And you need to find a community. And I believe that what you're doing here on Wives That Thrive, it's a great opportunity for women to engage,
Mm,
and women to engage without judging you, without, because that's what makes women isolated too, because you feel people will judge you, and, or they think you should have it all together. Or, okay, Yemi's been married 24 years now, she doesn't have issues. And she's living happily ever after. Everyone has issues. It's just
I
the
like I
tools to
like this.
manage.
I love this. Love Disney movies, like, oh, and they're happily ever after.
I
No.
tell you, I mean, you just know how to thrive.
Mm,
It's really, I love that. Wives that thrive, knowing how to thrive in that environment or whatever environment. Because the moment you thrive, your children thrive too. Even your spouse, no matter how he's at, when he sees you thriving, it's either he likes it or not, but there's something that has shifted in that house. And you
yes.
have to thrive. As a woman, you must thrive.
I love it. Yes. And that's my story. And every opportunity I get to talk about my story, I try to, because again, it wasn't a thriving marriage all through from the beginning. I
Mm,
had to get to the place where I started to thrive for me. When
absolutely.
I began to thrive, my home changed. My children came alive. My husband came alive. Now, does that
Yeah.
mean that he did not still upset me last week? Absolutely not. We still went through something last week. This man,
Mhm.
but
Oh, sometimes I think they try to just find your trouble every
they
week so that they so that they know.
No, I'm with you on that. I believe they have a meeting that they go to and say, okay, it's time
I'm like,
now. There's been too much peace and quiet in the home. So
I tell
let's
you.
go find their button and let's poke it. You poke that one,
Mm-hmm.
I'll poke this one. Because it's like, where
Mm-hmm.
is it from? Oh my gosh. So you hear this, Queens, whatever you're going through, you are not alone. You just have to find the vehicle, whatever that vehicle is going to be for you, to move you from a place of victimhood to a place of thriving and being
Absolutely.
the fullest, bloomiest version of you that you can be. And you will begin to see changes in your home. So
That's
if
right.
this up until this point has given you any goosebumps as it's given me, don't forget to like, to subscribe, and to hit the notification button and share this video with other queens that need to hear these amazing nuggets that Yemi is dropping for us. So we've talked about the fact that yes, marriage does what marriage does. How were you able to navigate your career and your children, right? Somehow, while after having children, it seemed, at least that was my experience, it seemed as if for a minute I was gravitating more towards my children and more about, it was all about the children and the how the children were going to be, how they were going to thrive, and a little less about him. I had to have a shift for things to change. But was that your story too, where it, or how did you maneuver? Because you started, of course, with your children, you moved, all of that. That's a lot of moving parts, right? At the time, and for him, and then to still have the capacity to make him feel one and only, right? Like, okay, I got you, babe. How was that like?
Oh, girl, that was that was something. That was something, and it was tough, I must say, because it's like you're juggling many, yeah, everything. You have to balance everything. And I remember I have 4 children, and you can imagine having 4 kids and managing that.
Yeah.
So it was almost consuming our relationship. It was almost it got to a point that just taking care of the kids, and for many of us women too, we use them as a buffer. We use them to cover what the reality is. If maybe you guys have drifted apart, and I think at some point when I felt I wasn't gaining traction in other areas of my life, I used the kids also to cover up, but it wasn't healthy.
That's right.
It wasn't healthy at all.
That's right.
And we came to ourselves, my husband and I. We just knew we had drifted, and then we started becoming very intentional about spending time together. So once a week, we just initially, when we just got married, when we just got married, we used to do it.
Yeah.
And then we went back to it. And we had to, my husband isn't much of a talker. I talk a lot, but now things have shifted. He talks a lot, I listen. And and I was so afraid of silence. I just used to think not communication was talking.
Right.
So I wasn't comfortable with just being quiet and having to fill in that silence. But I realized that the silence was him communicating that he just wants to be with me.
Oh my goodness. Woo! Do y'all hear that? It's not always about the talking.
No, 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 no.
Whoa.
So I didn't give him the space for him to love me in his own language.
Come
And
on.
we now had to start. So now we can be all day and not say anything, but we have said everything. I had to learn that. And nowadays, even I find men that talk a lot, I find them very tiring. If your husband talks a lot, affirm him on that. That's his own love language. But for me, I had to switch. So every Thursday we would go out. So it used to be long, quiet nights. Oh my God. Long, quiet.
Just sitting there, just hearing each other breathe.
And I felt I was so bored, and I felt beyond that, I felt he didn't know me.
Hmm.
I felt, how can this man know me if he's not even talking to me? So we got one book. I can never forget that book. Very simple book. I think it was written by Creflo Dollar Ministries or something. We just found it lying around somewhere. And that book had
I'm not sure what happened there, but while we wait for this, oh my gosh, this was so rich. This was so rich. I pray she's able to come back. But she has said so much. One thing she mentioned that I love is when she said she didn't feel like her husband knew her, and she didn't allow him to love her in his own language. We are so bent on making it the way we want it to be that we neglect to allow them to be who they are. Um, and so it's important, extremely important, to make sure that we are understanding what they need as well. Because we keep talking about our needs, our needs, our needs. But like Yemi and I had said at the beginning of this, men also have needs. They just might not be as good at communicating it like we do. And I'm finding out actually now more so than ever that we actually are not doing a good job of communicating our own needs either. So communication, like she said, seems to be the universal band-aid, if you will, or cord. Let's not use a band-aid because that can come off. But the cord, the three-prong cord that ties healthy marriages together. And when we are not communicating, then things fall apart. Because now you're in your own head assuming things that aren't even a reality, and he's in his own head assuming things that are not a reality either. And now you both are living in alternate realities and nothing is working. Um, I really love that she took ownership of her. Oh yay, she seems to be coming back now. I was scared that she wouldn't. Thank you. I'm glad. I was just doing a recap real quick, and I was telling them how I love what you said about not letting your husband love you in his own language.
mm,
That is
mm,
key because we tend to want to manipulate how they should love us or treat us or speak to us and all of that stuff without stopping long enough to even understand their way of thinking and speaking and loving, and then
absolutely.
accepting it gracefully, right?
Mm,
Without complaining about it. That's how he does it. You were saying something about you started off being the one that talks and your husband
yeah,
did, and now it's switched. It's so
yeah.
funny that you say that because that is actually my situation now too. I mean, I would talk and yap my husband's ear off. I mean, I would talk about everything that happened at work, everything, everything that's happening with the children. But over the years, I became quieter. I
Mm,
became more introspective, and
mm,
which is weird that I have a podcast now that I'm talking, but I, I became more of a listener of what he was saying and what he was not saying.
mm, mm.
And and then he has now become the one that just, yeah, I mean, he will call me and we'll be on the phone and he's not necessarily saying anything. I'm not saying anything. He's working, I'm doing my thing, but we're just on the
You
phone.
know?
And then after I will say, okay, well, I'll let you go. Okay, babe. And then we hang up. No,
Exactly.
no particular reason. But like you said, what he's telling me is he just wants to be in my company. We want to be in
That's
each other's
right.
company. Just know that
That's
we're there.
right.
That was it.
That's right.
Now, in the
That's right.
beginning, that would have driven me crazy. Why are you calling me? What do you want? You have nothing to say. Can you leave
Exactly.
me alone? Blah, 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 blah. It took growing up and
Mm.
understanding him and
Yeah.
understanding how he needs to feel connected to me for
Absolutely.
me to get to that
Absolutely.
point.
Absolutely, girl.
Oh my
Absolutely.
gosh. So you
Absolutely.
saying that was just phenomenal. That was actually another aha moment for me. Queens, learn to let him love you the way he knows
Mm.
how to, and accept that love gracefully and gratefully,
Mm.
because it's you he's trying to love, not some other person
Mm.
out. So, so that could be a thing. So, wow, you've said so much. I don't even know where to go. But now that you are, what's next for you? What are you planning to do with the rest of Yemi? Because you have now come into you. And I was, while we were talking behind the scenes before we came on, I said the world needs to know Yemi. The world needs to hear
Yeah.
what you have to say, because you have a lot to say, not only in the arena of marriage, but just even the world we live in. God, and how God, without him being in the midst of it all, everything is just
Mm.
a waste. So what's next for you?
Yeah.
What are your plans as you move forward? What would you like to see happen?
Oh, impact. I think I have enough. I have enough. God has been good to me. God has been so gracious to me to make me live the best of all worlds.
Mhm.
Marriage, career, ministry, friendships, and community. And I think I owe it to give back, to to pay it forward.
Mm.
Um, you inspire me a lot, Nikki. I
Oh,
think I can't say that enough, because I knew when you started 2020, 2021.
yeah,
It was fledgling, but you kept your focus. You had to reinvent over and over,
that's right.
but you never left what God has called you to do, and that has really inspired me. I think
Thank you.
progress over perfection, and just knowing that this one podcast may transform one woman's life. Maybe she's at the edge of making a decision. Do I go with him or do I stay? Or do
Mm.
I talk to him about how much his silence is irritating, or do I listen? Or do I
Mm.
need to choose between my family or my career? And that's impact. That's impact.
Mm.
So what next for Yemi is impact at all levels. God has been good to me. He's been gracious to even connect me with very powerful women that listen to what I have to say. And I think I'm going to heed the call and just share wisdom in career. I mean, it's not, and I know, because you also have a very thriving career, that rising to those ranks is not easy in a
That's right.
male dominated environment. So I think I have a lot to give. I have a lot to offer. And like you asked a very, how do I say it now? A question that resonated deeply, that what common trends do you see across the countries you've worked?
Mhm.
And I also realized that God didn't give me those opportunities so that not to see those problems. And
Mm.
God didn't give me the opportunity to see those problems, so not to be able to address them. And these are things we can do. So I look forward to partnering with you as well, Nikki,
I can't wait.
um, to amplify your voice. And if there's any way I can use my voice to amplify your calling, I would gladly do that. So what next for Yemi is that I would also want to spend more time with my husband, because I realize that we flow well in many, many areas, my husband and I. because he's also been to the peak of his career. He's also very driven in career, and he's very wise. He's been at exec level for some time, so he understands the politics of work.
Yeah.
He has even written a book. So I'm thinking of partnering with him to do a few things.
What's the name of the book?
Wisdom for the Workplace. Yes.
I love that. Wisdom for the Workplace. I'll make sure.
Yes.
Where can we find that book?
Amazon. It's on
Okay.
Amazon.
I'll make sure I put it in the show notes so that people can get.
Thank you. And we're also planning to write Wisdom in Marriage, Wisdom series, Wisdom in Marriage, Wisdom for the Workplace, Wisdom in Parenting, and just our lessons that we've learned.
I love
time.
it. That is impact. That is truly impact. I love that. Definitely make sure we know when these come out, but I'll definitely put this first one. What's your husband's name?
Kola Falayajo.
Okay,
yes,
good. I'll put that in the show notes so that people can grab a copy of that. I'm sure, because I also talk to a lot of the women that follow me or that are a part of this community, rather, are high achieving women. They're women that have risen through the ranks and are doing amazing things. And I'm sure they'll be able to get some wisdom from that book. Purpose. Let me ask, how has it's just sitting here, if I don't ask you, how has knowing who you are affected positively or negatively your marriage, so that now that you know who you are and of whose you are, what did that do to the dynamics of your marriage?
Well, what a question. That was the game changer for my marriage. That was the game changer for my kids, my husband, because when I was able to show up as who I was, and I owned who I was, the vulnerabilities, my needs as a woman, my needs as Yemi, I owned it, and I was vulnerable enough to be open about it. So it created an atmosphere of vulnerability and power in my house. It created that atmosphere where people were open to express themselves, and it changed the game for us. It changed the game. So owning me and and that's why I said, if the wife doesn't thrive, the house will not thrive. So I owned myself. I owned everything about me, and I owned the fact that that's what makes me special in this house, not just the cooking, the cleaning, the washing, the dishes, and everything else. And I leaned into that. And it's one thing it did was that it made my husband and my kids want to be my friend. Because when they saw who I really was, or when they saw who I really was, or I'm a kind, good person. I'm the kind of person people want to hang around with. And once I owned that, they just loved hanging around with me.
That's it. I love that, because one of the things that I realized that I struggled with earlier in my marriage was I did not show up authentically as myself.
We all didn't, Nikki. We all
Where
didn't.
did that come from? Why is that our first, what's the word I want to use? Our first way of defense, our first, what are we trying to defend first and foremost? And then why? Because we dated these men before we got married, right? So, and for the most part, men, I would say for the most part, show up who they are.
Absolutely.
What they are is what they are, pretty much. Some of them will change completely. And you're going, what in the world happened here? But for the most part, men don't even have it in them to be one way. They are who they are. But we as women, it seems as if we auditioned for the role of marriage and then got in, became the wife, and then now didn't know how to switch back to who we really were, and now had to keep on going along this path of this person that, because we're scared that if they find out who the real us was, now we're found out and like, oh my gosh, where
Nikki,
did that come from?
That is a whole podcast on itself.
Wow.
There are two things that come to me. The Bible says that he that tries to save his life will lose it,
Mm-hmm.
or he that loses his life for my sake will gain it. Many of us, we are trying to save our marriage by ourselves. We are trying to create that happily ever after. If I can only be like this, if I can only be like that. And in doing that, we're setting up walls because we are not showing up as our true, authentic self. Lose that personality that you've created that you think will make a happy marriage, and embrace who you are. It is the man and the wife that were naked and they were not ashamed. And when that shame, so to speak, is out of it, and you guys can be vulnerable with each other and create a safe environment for each other, your marriage, not only will you thrive, your spouse will thrive, your kids will thrive. They will be grounded. It does something to the house when people know they can show up as their true, authentic self.
That's right. That's right.
And the biggest gift any woman can give to herself and her family is self-discovery.
Yes. Amen. Say
That's
it again.
the biggest gifts.
That's it.
You can't be an apple tree and try to thrive as a mango tree. You can't.
That's true. I love that. My Flourish course, that's one of the very first things we do is self-discovery, right? Who are you?
Absolutely.
Because to even begin to peel away the layers of this mask that we have on, we have to, and some of us are not ready yet to take off that mask. We hold on to that, hey, don't take my mask. But the moment, it's so freeing. It is so freeing to let go of that mask. And I think the older you get and the longer you are in marriage, at this point, you're like, you're thinking, what else is there for you? Right? Look, you might as well know who the real me is.
I tell you, we've been at it for over 20 years now. So, live with it.
Live with it. At this point, live with it. I just want wives to get it sooner rather than later, so they can really live their truest, fullest self sooner rather than later, and not go through all the things that we had to go through.
Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely.
Because go ahead.
Yeah, and I want to say it is beautiful. You are beautiful. You're kind. We've been socialized among all these layers to think we're not good enough, that if this man discovered who I really am, he wouldn't want me anymore, or these kids wouldn't want me anymore. So you have to be the perfect cook, the perfect wife, the sexiest woman, the this, the that. But the real you is beautiful, and that's who we need. That's who your husband needs. That's who your kids need.
Wow.
That's who we need. That's who we need to thrive. They are waiting for that you, so that everyone else can thrive on your strength, on the strength of you being you.
That's right.
I'm
glad you said that, because just yesterday I was reading, I'm reading Dr. Miles Monroe's prayer, Standing the Purpose of Prayer. And he said something here. He said, when you have a low opinion of yourself, it is because you do not know God's true opinion of you, which he reveals in his word.
Absolutely.
So us trying to mask and be something we're not is only because we haven't yet figured out in God's word who we are. Absolutely. And so we're walking around masquerading as something we're not, and then wondering why our marriages are failing. Absolutely. Because we haven't come to the table as the true, fullest form of our own selves in him.
Absolutely. And you know what, Nikki? With the many high-profile women I engage and I work with, many of them, by the time they discover themselves, they are done. They are ready to quit their marriages because they are afraid that now with this real me, I've created a life around this me that I don't even know who I am anymore. But I love me. Who else will accept this me? So I'd rather drop everything I've built over the years
Mm.
and embrace this me. So you realize marriages, women that are in their 50s, 60s, and they just all of a sudden they just say, no, I'm quitting.
Right.
And like you said, if they had done this earlier and
Yeah.
worked out who they were, it may have worked.
It
It may
may.
have worked.
It might have had a fighting chance. There's this
Absolutely.
word that we're using these days, quiet quitting, where
Hmm.
you're just
Hmm.
slowly, over the years, just
Hmm.
disengaging, and then one day you wake up and there is just nothing left for you.
Nothing left.
You don't know who this other person is, because first and foremost, you don't know who you are. And then so of course you
Absolutely.
know who he is. And then you think that the only option is to disengage completely. It can change, but it does start with the work. We have
Absolutely.
to be willing, we have to be vulnerable enough to recognize that there's work to be done here. And let's
Absolutely.
not wait for the other
Absolutely.
party and say, well, he doesn't
No,
know. It doesn't have anything to
no.
do with him. The
Mm-mm.
mere fact that the burden is on your heart means you start the work. You're the one God is calling to make the change and start the work. And then, the seeds will be planted in your actions. From your actions,
Mm.
seeds will be
Mm.
planted and changes will begin to happen. And if it's meant to be, then they will, you guys will stay. But even at the
Mm-hmm.
end of the day, if it just is so
Sorry.
disenfranchised franchise that you can't stay, you're still a better human being, a better version of yourself,
Absolutely.
because you're taking yourself with you. So if you leave
Absolutely.
broken
Mm.
and try to go into something else, guess what you're taking with you? A broken
Mm.
you. So now you're starting that cycle all over again.
Absolutely.
So it's
Absolutely.
key that, my only hope, my only desire, what my heart desires the most is give it a fighting chance.
Yeah.
Don't be quick to say, you know what, I throw in the towel. No matter how many years you've been trying, just give it a fighting chance. Reach out to someone, find a mentor, find a coach, find a safe space, a community where you can be vulnerable. Stand in front of the mirror. One of the works that I do in my course, I just have them go stand in front of the mirror, you and yourself, and really evaluate, who are you?
Mm.
Find out, because we lose ourselves along the way. We've lost
Yeah.
ourselves along the way. And until we find us, the marriage doesn't have a fighting chance at all.
Mm-mm. Mm-mm.
Oh my gosh. Yemi, you have
Um,
you have said so much to me. You have dropped so many nuggets. I'm gonna ask you this last one question. What
I'm
does
here.
it mean to you to be a wife that thrives? You've said so much already, but cap it off. What does
Yeah.
it mean to be a wife that thrives?
Some days I wake up with this song, living my life like it's golden.
Yes.
And a wife that thrives for me is a wife that does the work
Mm.
on herself, that does the work on herself so that she can live her best life and enjoy the best in marriage and
Mm.
enjoy the best in children and enjoy the best version of her.
That's
A wife that understands what her thrive factors are,
right. Mm.
and she invests in it, because not only will it affect her,
Right.
it will affect everyone else around her.
That's
A
right.
wife that thrives is a very powerful woman. I don't think we women know the power that we carry. We are extremely powerful.
That's right.
And a wife that thrives is a wife that leans into her power
Mm.
by working on herself.
Listen to her
And
power.
because of what she does, everything else around her will thrive. Whatsoever she lays her hands on will prosper.
Amen. Hey, come on, Pastor.
And her husband and her children, whether he's with her or not, will always rise to call her blessed.
Blessed.
He will always, whatever emerges from the work you've done, know that they will always rise to call you blessed because you're a beautiful woman, wife that thrives. Just discover it. So that for me is a woman, a wife that thrives. Every other thing now will thrive with it, the career, the job, the ministry, but she has to prosper. Her soul has to prosper. The Bible says, I wish above all things that you prosper, even as your soul prospers. So that
Yes.
inner work is that scripture coming into life, into fruition. Yes.
Oh, oh my gosh. There was worth the price of admission. That was a mic drop. Thank you so much for your vulnerability, for sharing your nuggets, for just being here and being the full Yemi that you could be. I mean, you're glowing, and you just were you shared amazingly. I know that, wives, queens, I know you got a lot, a lot. If you need to replay this and listen over and over and over, there were so many gems and nuggets that Yemi dropped for you today. Use that work, do the work. It's important to do the work, right? Don't think that you're the only. No, there are resources for you. Reach out. If you sit in it on your own and just sit in it, you're doing yourself a disservice. You're not serving yourself. You're not, it's not serving you anymore. So reach out to whomever, however you can. And if this has helped you in any way, I want you to make sure you like, you subscribe, and you share. Hit the notification button so that you can get more gems like this. Queen, I see you, I hear you, and I know that you have it in you to do what you need to do. Remember, it takes two to make a marriage work, but it starts with one, and that one is you. So until the next time, thank you so much, my darling. I love you. Thank you for being here. Queens, enjoy the rest of the day. And until I see you in the next episode, bye for now.